The Invisible Crisis, how one woman's fight reveals our collective blindness. Welcome to a journey that will challenge your perceptions, stir your emotions, and hopefully ignite a fire within you to create change. Today, we're diving deep into a crisis that exists in plain sight, yet remains tragically invisible to so many. We'll explore why it's so hard to get help for those who need it most, and how this reflects a broader societal blindness that affects us all. But before we begin, I want to acknowledge the extraordinary individual who opened my eyes to these realities. Regina Jones, a soft-spoken yet fiercely determined advocate, has dedicated her life to helping women and children facing domestic violence, homelessness, and abuse. Her tireless efforts have not only transformed countless lives, but have also exposed the deep-rooted challenges in our systems of support. Regina's work is nothing short of heroic, a beacon of hope in what can often feel like an ocean of despair. Imagine, for a moment, a woman named Sarah. She's standing at the edge of a precipice, her two young children clutching her legs. Behind her lies a home filled with fear and violence. Ahead of her, a vast unknown. With trembling hands and a racing heart, she takes that terrifying step forward, choosing uncertainty over the certainty of abuse. Now, picture this same woman, days later, sitting in a crowded office, her children restless beside her. She's been here for hours, filling out form after form, telling her story over and over again. She's exhausted, hungry, and scared. The promise of help seems to be slipping further away with each passing minute. This is the reality that Regina Jones witnesses every day. It's a reality that challenges our perceptions of society's safety nets and forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. For those in the direst need, help can be heartbreakingly hard to come by. Why is this? How can we live in a world of such abundance, yet fail so miserably at providing basic support to those fleeing violence or facing homelessness? The answer, as Regina has shown me, is complex and multifaceted. It's a tapestry woven from threads of systemic failures, societal attitudes, and a collective blindness to the struggles happening right under our noses. Let's start with the systems themselves. Regina shared story after story of women like Sarah who, upon finally gathering the courage to leave abusive situations, found themselves facing a labyrinth of bureaucracy, emergency shelters filled to capacity, waiting lists for subsidized housing stretching months into the future, legal aid services overwhelmed with cases. Each of these represents a critical failure point, a moment where someone reaching out for help might instead fall through the cracks. But it's not just about a lack of resources, although that's certainly part of the equation. It's about how these resources are allocated, how they're accessed, and who gets to decide who's worthy of help. Regina spoke of the frustration of watching women be turned away from shelters because they didn't fit a narrow definition of abused enough, of seeing families denied housing assistance because their situation didn't tick all the right boxes on a form. This brings us to a crucial point: the role of societal attitudes in perpetuating this crisis. Despite decades of awareness campaigns and progress in many areas, there still exists a pervasive stigma around issues like domestic violence and homelessness. Regina has encountered it time and time again: the subtle and sometimes not so subtle victim blaming, the judgmental looks, the whispered comments, "Why didn't she leave sooner?" He must have done something to provoke it. They're probably just lazy and don't want to work. These attitudes don't just hurt on a personal level. They seep into our institutions, influencing policies and practices. They make it harder for people to seek help and harder for that help to be given when it's sought. But perhaps the most insidious obstacle Regina has identified is what I've come to think of as our collective blindness. It's the way we, as a society, have become desensitized to the suffering around us. We see a homeless person on the street and barely register their presence. We hear statistics about domestic violence and feel a momentary pang of sympathy before moving on with our day. This blindness allows us to maintain the comforting illusion that these problems are someone else's responsibility, that they're being handled by the system, that they don't really affect us. Regina's work shatters this illusion. It forces us to confront the reality that these issues are not abstract concepts or distant problems. They're happening in our communities, to our neighbors, perhaps even to people we know and love. Let me share with you another story that Regina told me, one that illustrates both the challenges and the potential for change. This is the story of Mariah, a young mother of three who fled an abusive relationship with nothing but the clothes on her back and her children in her arms. When Maria first came to Regina's organization, she was desperate. She had no money, no job, no place to stay. The local shelters were full, and she was terrified that her abuser would find her. Regina and her team worked tirelessly to piece together support for Maria. They found her temporary housing with a volunteer host family. They connected her with legal aid to help her navigate the court system. They provided counseling and support groups to help her process her trauma. But at every turn, they faced obstacles. The waiting list for permanent housing was months long. Childcare costs were prohibitive, making it nearly impossible for Maria to find work. The legal process dragged on, leaving her in a state of constant anxiety. Yet, despite these challenges, Maria persevered. With the unwavering support of Regina and her team, she slowly began to rebuild her life. She found a job, first part-time, then full-time. She secured safe, stable housing for herself and her children. She began to smile again, to hope again. Maria's story is a testament to the power of persistence, both on the part of those seeking help and those providing it. It shows us what's possible when we refuse to give up, when we meet bureaucracy with determination and stigma with compassion. But here's the thing. Maria's story shouldn't be exceptional. The help she received, the support she was given should be the norm, not the exception. The fact that it isn't reveals a fundamental flaw in how we, as a society, approach these issues. We've created a system that treats support for the most vulnerable as a scarce resource to be rationed rather than a fundamental right to be guaranteed. We've allowed bureaucracy to become a barrier rather than a facilitator. We've permitted stigma and judgment to influence who receives help and how that help is given. In short, we failed. We failed Maria. We failed Sarah. We failed countless others whose names we'll never know. And in doing so, we failed ourselves because a society that cannot or will not adequately support its most vulnerable members is a society that has lost touch with its own humanity. But here's the good news. It doesn't have to be this way. Regina's work, challenging as it is, also offers us a blueprint for change. It shows us what's possible when we combine compassion with action, when we refuse to accept that's just the way it is as an answer. So what can we do? How can we individually and collectively work to create a world where help is readily available for those who need it most? First, we need to open our eyes. We need to challenge our own blindness to really see the struggles happening around us. This means educating ourselves about issues like domestic violence and homelessness. It means listening to the stories of those who have lived these experiences without judgment or preconception. Second, we need to use our voices. We need to speak out against stigma and misconceptions when we encounter them. We need to advocate for policy changes that will make it easier for people to access help. This could mean contacting our local representatives, participating in awareness campaigns, or simply having difficult conversations with friends and family. Third, we need to support the organizations doing this crucial work. This doesn't just mean financial donations, although those are certainly important. It can also mean volunteering our time, sharing our skills, or simply spreading awareness about the services available in our communities. Fourth, we need to rethink our approach to these issues at a systemic level. We need to push for more integrated, holistic support systems that recognize the interconnected nature of issues like domestic violence, homelessness, poverty, and mental health. We need to advocate for policies that prioritize prevention and early intervention, not just crisis response. Fifth, and perhaps most importantly, we need to cultivate empathy and compassion. We need to challenge ourselves to see the humanity in every person, regardless of their circumstances. We need to approach these issues not from a place of judgment or pity, but from a place of genuine care and solidarity. All right? I want to leave you with one final thought. Throughout our conversation, Regina kept coming back to a simple yet profound idea. Every life matters. Every person, regardless of their circumstances, has inherent worth and potential. When we provide help and support to those in need, we're not just addressing immediate crises, we're investing in human potential. We're saying your life matters, your future matters, and we as a community are here to support you. This idea, this recognition of shared humanity, is at the heart of Regina's work. It's what drives her to keep going, even when the challenges seem insurmountable, and it's what should drive us all to action. Because here's the truth, the issues we've discussed today, domestic violence, homelessness, the struggle to access help, they're not just their problems, they're our problems. They affect the fabric of our communities, the health of our society, the future of our world. So I challenge you as you leave here today to ask yourself, what can I do? How can I open my eyes, use my voice, offer my support? How can I be part of the solution? Remember, change doesn't always come in grand gestures. It comes in small acts of kindness, in moments of understanding, in the decision to care and to act, even when it's difficult. It comes when we refuse to look away, when we choose to see and to respond to the humanity in others. We have the power to create a world where no one has to face violence, homelessness, or abuse alone, where help is readily available for those who need it most, where every individual is seen, valued, and supported. This is not just a dream, it's a possibility, and it starts with each of us. It starts now. So let's commit here and now to opening our eyes, to using our voices, to offering our support. Let's commit to building a society where the invisible become visible, where the voiceless are heard, where help is not a scarce resource, but a fundamental right. Because in the end, we are all connected. We are all part of the same human family. And when we lift up the most vulnerable among us, we lift up ourselves. We create a better world for all of us. Thank you